Sejahtera. I am Dr. Wee Biswan, PI for the project of E-MetS, Risk Assessments for Adolescents. Together with me, there are another 4 co-researchers. They are Professor Po Bigun, Dr. Muhammad Razif bin Shahril, Dr. Miakmo Tawau, and Ms. Nur Najiha binti Baharul. Metabolic syndrome is defined as the cluster of various metabolic risk factors, including abdominal obesity, dyslipidemia, hypertension, and hyperglycemia that will lead to the high risk of getting cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. The global prevalence of metabolic syndrome can be estimated to be about 1/4 of the world population. In Malaysia, the latest National Health and Morbidity Survey of 2019 reported 1.7 million population currently live with 3 major risk factors of diabetes, hypertension, and hypercholesterolemia. And every 1 in 2 adults in Malaysia were overweight or obese, and 1 in 2 adults in Malaysia have abdominal obesity. Even though the prevalence of metabolic syndrome among adolescents is not as high as among adults, the existence, even in a low percentage, will lead to a greater economic burdens and hindrance to national development. Rising prevalence of overweight and obesity among children and adolescents is of particular concern, as these conditions tend to persist into adulthood, and each of these young generation is at increased risk of developing metabolic syndrome and subsequently progressing to type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease in later lives. Study in Malaysia reported that nearly 1 in 3 obese adolescents had metabolic syndrome, and more than 90% of the subjects had at least one metabolic abnormality. Current data shows a significant increase in weight gain during the COVID-19 pandemic. As the obesity issues among adolescents worsen, obesity also increased the morbidity and mortality rate for COVID-19 patients. This data proves the importance of routine screening among adolescents to prevent future complications. The main treatment for adolescents is lifestyle modification, as other therapeutic options is not recommended for this age group. Hence, this innovation is focused on the risk assessments of metabolic syndrome as well as the lifestyle modification for the adolescents. E-MetS Risk Assessments for Adolescents is an infographic-based multiple approaches intervention aimed to provide the readers the definition, risk factors, and lifestyle modification, which focus on dietary habits, physical activity, and sleeping habits regarding metabolic syndrome. Besides, it also provides a quick check on metabolic syndrome risk, also based on Sustainable Developmental Goal 2030, with emphasis on the good health and well-being. The third of the 17 proposed goals of SDG, which is ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages, is linked directly with good nutrition and health. access to the E-MetS risk assessment for adolescents. First step, participants scan the QR code or click the link to reach to E-MetS risk assessment for adolescents. Participants will be redirected to the infographic-based assessment tools to reach to E-MetS risk assessment for adolescents. Participants will be able to assess the definition, risk factors, and lifestyle modification, which focus on the dietary habits, physical activity, and sleeping habits regarding metabolic syndrome. Second steps, participants will be directed to assess their MS risk by entering the information on their personal, anthropometry, and blood profiles information. Once the data are keyed into the tools, the participants will be able to evaluate their risk towards metabolic syndrome. Step 3. Participants will be directed to evaluate their knowledge levels on their understanding regarding metabolic syndrome through the game sections in E-MetS.
Created using Powtoon.